The Overwatch balance team pretty much has no idea what they're doing with the balance of the game anymore, and that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Hi everybody, my name is Abby, welcome to the video. I'm still a little bit sick, so if you hear me sniffling and things like that, well, excuse me for that. It's not much I can control, but I do want to get back into the shape of things. I'm feeling better enough to do a video, and I felt like it was high time that I sat down and talked to people about the state of the game and the problems that are arising with the new balance. And again, the problem with all of this is that we are constantly creating new problems rather than solving older problems. And there's just so much to talk about, so I'm not going to waste any more time and get straight into it. As always, these things are unscripted and they come straight from the heart. So let's wing it and let's talk about it. First thing I want to talk about is the HP pools. I want to talk about the HP pools. The HP pools were increased because they wanted to pair that up with the fact that there was going to be a DPS passive that reduced healing by 20%. And to be honest with you, when it came down to the 20% healing reduction with the new HP pools, I felt like it was actually pretty fair. In certain circumstances, it was a bit weird. And the best way to balance that out was to create a damage threshold to be met to activate the DPS passive so that tanks didn't take chip damage and get the healing reduced, because it was really important in tanks, not during team fights or away from the team fights when you're grouping up with your team to engage. It was usually during that setup and staging phase that a tracer could somehow chip you across the map, apply the DPS passive, and it felt incredibly silly. Now, the healing reduction has been reduced to 15%, and I cannot stress this enough. The healing reduction, I do not feel it. I've been playing a lot of tank. You're going to see a lot of tank footage in the background. And I've played all the tanks. I played all the tanks this season with the 50% healing reduction, and I do not feel it. I'm so sorry, I do not feel this. I feel like all the tanks with the new HP pools, the armor increases, the ability to create overhealth, and all sorts of other like damage mitigation abilities was more than enough to make the team fights feel like the same way that they did back in Season 8, where it feels like nothing was dying. In fact, I was playing with my stack, and there was a lot of times where we were just feeling like nothing could die. And it was a horrible experience. Like, I'm actually of that personal belief that perhaps we should turn back the clock on the DPS passive and put it to 20% on squishies and 15% on tanks, because tanks are the ones that like did not get along with that 20% the most. So I would like to see that as a change in the future, because I'm not going to lie, I really do feel like the heal reduction is passive. I'm even willing to experiment with putting it to 20% for the tank role, as long as the way to trigger this DPS passive is to meet a certain damage threshold. Maybe you could be like, okay, do 200 damage to a target, and then for 2.5 seconds, they have the healing reduced. And I think that would be a lot more fair. This way, chip damage, won't be enough, and DPS would have to team up, and it would be a little bit more balanced as well. But once that passive comes online, you're at a disadvantage. The other person deserves to win the duel, and the healing should really be cut off, right? Because right now, even when I was playing support, I just felt like I could out heal anything. Like, I played a lot of supports, never ever felt this feeling like, wow, the DPS passive was online, I'm being hindered from my gameplay, I should probably improvise and do something else. Because that's what it felt like in the 20% match. I felt like, okay, the team fights are a lot more different. I need to like contribute in a different way. So I was playing Moira with, like with my dive comms and actually doing more damage. When I was playing Lucio, I tried to really help set up engagements and kills. So it was a little bit more proactive gameplay. Now it just kind of feels like, it's not like that anymore. It really just feels like we're all back into that bundle up in one big ball group and just stay alive and don't die, because especially tanks with the ability to create like different forms of damage mitigation or overhealth or basically lifestealing like Mauga and Queen do. I'm sorry, like, I don't feel that DPS passive, and maybe that's just me, because I don't know, like, I don't get it. Maybe I'm just playing the wrong DPS heroes on all of this. Maybe it feels good for hit scan, but at least on most of the projectile DPS heroes, you do not feel it. Now, moving on from the heal reduction and HP pools, I want to talk about the fact that we're seeing characters, like, with the where we're going with the game is unbelievably unreasonable. In the new dev blog, they basically talked about the Wrecking Ball rework, and the Wrecking Ball rework is all about increasing the HP pool. And I do not like this, guys. Guys, this is the same problem that we were running into in Season 2 with Junker Queen, where she turned like Genji and Sojourn into mini tanks. And I want you guys to think about something. The goal in the next season is to nerf Sombra and Tracer, and yet we're enabling a big dive tank who's going to turn Sombra and Tracer into just that, mini tanks again. So how are we going to force dive away when Wrecking Ball, who I do believe is going to be meta next season, is not only going to be a tank who has his one weakness removed, that he cannot do anything for his team, But now, with that, he turns two of the most strongest and oppressive DPS in the game into characters that in the 3-1 dive, they will be unstoppable. So again, what is the plan over here? And how do you balance this? Because potentially, if they keep this around, this might just make Tracer, Sombra, and Ball perma meta. And in this case, how does a character like Winston even begin to compete with Wrecking Ball for that dive tank spot anymore? I could see Doomfist competing with it because Doomfist isn't that bad into a Ball matchup. But however, there's no denying that Ball turning everybody into a mini tank within that 3-1 dive engage is definitely going to be frustrating to play against. So I really dislike this trend that I'm seeing with the fact that we're constantly getting these characters that are increasing the HP pool. My question then becomes, why are we just creating more and more and more health to shoot at? It's like we don't want players to be punished. We don't want players to die. We don't want players to make mistakes. So we're going to constantly create these abilities that basically say, no, it's okay, your HP is high. No, it's okay, your HP is even higher than before. For example, guys, I want you to think about something. Tracer, Sombra, Ball as your frontline dive comp, right? In the backline supports, what could you play? There's a lot of things that you can play, but potentially you could actually run into playing, Brig is pretty good with dive for a variety of reasons. And you could even play 𝐓𝐈𝐈 because of his ability to stay alive. And 𝐓𝐈𝐈 can also heal across the map. He can also yeet people back into himself. In that hypothetical scenario, he might not be that bad of a pick because of his ability to survive and keep Brig with him. You could cycle between Wrecking Balls' overhealth and then bring up Tree and then bring up 𝐓𝐈𝐈 rally and constantly keep that overhealth going. And imagine how frustrating that's going to be to play against that. Almost every fight, the enemy team just has more HP than you. And that makes me question, like, what was the point of the DPS passive? What was the point of trying to give more agency to the DPS role when progressive, because this trend is going to continue. Trust me on this. This is how Blizzard has always been. This trend is going to continue, and I will not be surprised if the new support does something like this too, where the health pools out of nowhere, the characters will just come in like, oh yeah, you know what, it's okay, like the heal reduction is a thing. Well, we're not going to care about the heal reduction, we'll just keep increasing HP pools through characters. This is absolutely ridiculous. I won't even be surprised if it's only a matter of time before a DPS gets brought into the game who also increases their health pool. Doomfist used to do that back in Overwatch 1, and that was very annoying to play against, albeit it did feel great on the Doomfist though. However, my point still remains is that what was the point of doing this big patch where we wanted to put more agency into the damage roll and then introduce all these concepts, buff all these unnecessary healing numbers on things? And that's kind of what I want to talk about next, is healing progressively is seeing a buff. It's slowly getting buffed over time. First of all, Ana's nade saw a heal impact increase. So once it gets dropped onto a target, the heal is actually gone up by a bunch of numbers, right? Next, Illari is getting a healing number increase, and they did say that they want to nerf Moira and shift power in their kit. Okay, well, where will they shift that power into her kit? Obviously, they'll probably put more emphasis onto her heal botting playstyle. So what's going to happen is that anytime a support becomes a little bit more meta relevant because of their utility, because you could argue that Moira was meta because they did buff her damage numbers, most likely, if they do want to keep power in her damage, they're going to either, well, actually, this is a bit subjective on how they want to do it, because if they want her to remain within that like DPS-like playstyle, they would nerf the healing, although I would argue that that's not where the problem is, and that Moira didn't need the insane buffs that she got for this season. So I just hope that they go through with nerfs. I feel like the fact that they're so afraid to nerf anything, like, why is it that there's very few select heroes that they are never shy about nerfing? They never give them proper compensation buffs to help with their playstyle. Looking at characters like Genji and Hanzo, who have been left in the dumpster this season. Seriously, have you guys been seeing the clips of Genji and Hanzo? They're unable to do anything right now, including Junkrat. I know there's this one guy in my comment sections who always like, yo bro, the Junkrat Mafia, we're watching, you gotta talk about it at some point. And you know what, I agree, like even Junkrat is basically useless. So many characters in the DPS roster who aren't hit scan are basically useless. Pharah is basically useless, because again, like, with all the stuff that's coming into the game, with all the changes that have been made and how a strong hit scan is, I guess you could argue that projectile DPS doesn't scale as much, but even in some cases, it feels like hit scan can also not do anything. I'm not going to lie, there's definitely moments where it feels like hit scan can control the game, but there's also moments where I'm playing Cass or Ashe and I'm shooting these targets and I'm like, damn, they're just never dying. And the healing is so high. Even with this 50% healing reduction, it's very, very, very difficult to get rid of them. And the game, it's beginning to feel less and less about skill expression, and it's beginning to just feel more and more about cooldown trading. It just kind of feels like if we can force out their powerful cooldowns first and then spam ours, we can easily win. And I don't know if that's the right way to take the game going forward. It makes the game feel less shooter and more MOBA, but they themselves said that they don't want the game to feel MOBA-esque and wanted to feel more shooter-like. But then why would you create characters and put more emphasis on the idea that keep creating overhealth and all this type of stuff when this is exactly how you lean into the MOBA side of the game and on the shooter side of the game? Okay, and the thing is like, look, the reason I'm ranting about all of this, right, is this is the beginning of the trend in the 250 HP era, in the HP pool increase and the heal reduction era. This is what they're showing, that these are the solutions that they think would benefit the game. So we are beginning to see little forms of it here and there, and then going on, it's going to get worse and worse. And as per usual, they're completely lost on balance on some things too. For example, let me tell you guys something, right? In the dev blog, Aaron Keller starts the dev blog by saying that they're happy with where Venture is, and they don't think that they need any nerfs whatsoever because, they're fairly balanced, and they thought the Venture's doing pretty good. And you know what he proceeds to do in the second paragraph? He begins to describe that they're actually going to make Venture's combo inconsistent. What? Imagine saying something like, yeah, no, you know what, Venture stats and everything that we recorded were fairly balanced, everybody had a great time with them, and that's fine, that's great. Like, Venture's a great hero, very, very good hero, very similar to, DPS Doomfist, fun character, lots of people excited to play them, okay? And you know what Aaron Keller does? It's like, yeah, you know what, like, yeah, but just to be on the safe side, we're gonna nerf this DPS as we release them into the season where everybody can play them and play them in competitive. That is so ridiculous. But why would you nerf Venture? It is a nerf. If you understand how their combo worked and how everything was working, you would understand that the changes that they made to Venture is basically a nerf, and it's so saddening. And moving over to also, like, in terms of changes that make no sense, Wrecking Ball, one of the best ways to counter a Wrecking Ball, usually in ranked or quick play, was the fact, like, you would have to ignore that Wrecking Ball and jump his team, because they are basically, like, Ball's weakness is that he's unable to protect them. So if his team doesn't follow up on his engages or plays the pace that a Wrecking Ball should play, which a lot of people don't know how to do, which is, fine, because, again, a lot of people don't choose to learn this game, otherwise they'd understand how to play with the Wrecking Ball. They are now removing this weakness from Wrecking Ball, and again, what's happening is that it's turning Wrecking Ball into this generic tank. It's making this generic do-it-all tank, kind of like Junker Queen. That, oh, you know what, like, this is Junker Queen but as a dive tank. Like, if you kind of compare, like, both of them are now going to give health to the team. Junker Queen kind of gives some speed, but she's the brawl version of that playstyle, and Ball is the dive version of that playstyle. And then what happens is with that, like, with Ball losing that identity of being a specialist dive tank and becoming more of a generalistic dive playstyle, with what he's able to do, remove all his weaknesses, and he's unable to be punished more often than not. We will see how everything goes. It's also going to just hurt the game overall, because then potentially characters like D.Va and Winston will struggle within their spots of trying to take that dive spot from Wrecking Ball. Maybe not at mid to lower levels of play, but certainly at high levels of play where people understand how to play with the Wrecking Ball, and Wrecking Ball players are phenomenal, in Masters and above nowadays. So it is going to be very difficult to then balance Wrecking Ball, because now they actually have to keep his rework around, because again, this is a rework, this is here to stay, and they want Wrecking Ball to do this. And okay, how fun is it for a 300 HP Tracer, 250 HP Tracer to jump your ass with a 300 HP Sombra and a 700 plus HP Wrecking Ball? How is that fun? That just makes dive more oppressive. They completely failed in this patch where they were supposed to nerf dive, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. They have no idea what they're doing, and no characters that genuinely need the buff, no characters that needs the buffs is getting them. In fact, you know what, like, Iliari was actually performing so piss poor in this past season that when she finally became balanced, she's not even meta right now because she sucks against dive and she's meh overall. Like, when she finally started to see playtime again, they nerfed Iliari again. They nerfed Iliari again. They took power away from her ability to shoot and increased this uptime, decreased the uptime of her, railgun charging back up. And they were like, no, you know what? Like, we want Iliari to heal more. Why? Iliari is not a character that's about healing. Nobody picks Iliari for healing. It's like saying, oh, well, we should increase Zenyatta's healing and reduce the damage on his orbs. But that makes no sense because both 𝐒𝐈𝐈 and Zen are poke damage based supports whose entire identity is to shoot the enemy down. Then if you remove the power from that, it's just going to make the character feel worse, and that's exactly what 𝐒𝐈𝐈 is going to go through. Is she's just going to feel worse to shoot with? And what if they do that to Zen? Then again, this is what I've been saying, that characters are beginning to lose their identity because Blizzard has no idea how to balance them. 𝐒𝐈𝐈 is not even meta. I really need you guys to understand. 𝐒𝐈𝐈 is not even meta, and she's not even that good. She was fine. She was good for casual play. And for some strange reason, they were like, no, we need to increase 𝐒𝐈𝐈's healing. And I promise you, mark my words, this is exactly the trend that they're going to start taking. I will not be surprised if at some point Brigitte gets a buff to armor pack, because the new excuse is, well, we didn't account for the new HP pools. Yeah, but that was the point. We weren't supposed to account for the HP pools. Now 𝐒𝐈𝐈 is seeing a heal increase. Ana saw her heal increase. Next thing you know, Kiko sees a heal increase. Life Fever, we know Life Fever is bound to get buffs. What are you going to buff on Life Fever? Mark my words, it's going to be his healing. Then if they said they're going to shift Lucio's power, well, where do you shift Lucio's power? From speed, right? Speed is the powerful part of Lucio. Where are they going to put the power next? It is damage? Nope. It is boop? Nope. Where's it going to go? Straight into his healing. And this is their new trend. They just take power away from one part of the kit that's meant to help and be the reason you play the hero. And then they're just like, no, for supports, you will be heal bots. You do not deserve to do anything but be a heal bot on support. And that's the playstyle that they're trying to promote. It's absolutely ridiculous. They're turning tanks into this weird generalist playstyle that, well, all of you kind of do this one thing with slight differences. And support, yeah, you also kind of all do this one thing with slight differences. And damage, yeah, well, if you're not playing like certain hit scan heroes, well, then go after yourself, because all of those other cool heroes like Hanzo, Pharah, Mei, Junkrat, Sim, yeah, and Genji, especially Genji now, yeah, well, they feel like garbage. Seriously, guys, Genji, Hanzo, Junkrat, Mei, and Symmetra all need help. They don't deserve to be this bad just because they're not quote-unquote hit scan or, you know, like things like that. It's ridiculous. And the fact that Sojourn and Orisa dodged nerfs again. What are you doing, Blizzard? Have you not been watching OWCS and seeing how insanely strong Sojourn and especially Orisa is? I mean, talking about Orisa since the beginning of last season. Nobody was talking about Orisa except me. And Orisa is here. And Orisa is here to stay. And think about it, man, like we have a 1000 HP Orisa coming up. We have a dive comp that's going to give everybody 1000 plus HP. You know, you guys know I'm exaggerating, but you know what I'm talking about. It's just not going to feel fun to shoot things in the next season. Healing is going up. Overhealth is going up. Damage is remaining the same. What do we do? And then what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen? We're going to see damage creep. And we're going to see damage creep. Damage will start to get power crept. Why? Because, well, we decided to give everybody an ability to increase HP or to increase the healing in the game. Come on, man, this is ridiculous. Anyways, everybody, that's going to be it for this video. That's it for this one. And, you know, I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below. I know some stuff is, you know, people are going to disagree. If you do disagree with me, do it in a respectful fashion. I completely understand and will listen to your viewpoint and read a comment because I like doing that. And, you know, if you have anything insightful to say or anything fun to say, do leave it in the comment down below. I will be reading lots of comments since I'm sick and I'm kind of just in bed, you know, scrolling. So I might as well read your comments. And if you want to support me financially, you can do so by using the super chat down below until I will get a Patreon set up by this week. And most importantly, if you want to support the channel for free, all you have to do is like, comment, and subscribe. It helps with the algorithm. Please help me keep the channel alive. I really, really enjoy this. Really enjoy doing this for you guys. You guys are the best ever. I notice all of you. I read everybody's comments. I heart everybody's comments when I do read them. And, you know, let's keep this community going. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for this video. I will see you guys in the next one.